Today I'd like to finish my discussion of the school shooter movie. There's a trilogy of school shooter movies that have been released. Well, I guess you could say since Columbine. Now there maybe have been others as well that I'm not familiar with, but these are the three main ones that have met my attention through the years. The first is Elephant, directed by Gus Van Sant, probably the most mainstream of the three. I believe it came out in 2003, which was the same year that Zero Day was released, which was a far more off Hollywood kind of production. The director and the two leads were all relatively unknown at the time, and I think they're basically not very haven't been cast in very much since, and that in a way makes it seem all the more authentic. The characters they play have their own names, have the names that they actually have, in real life. And the families that we meet of the two boys are also their real families in real life. So they just took these two guys who were actually high schoolers at the time and had them be in this movie where they are plotting to shoot up their school, and we see them progress from a series of fairly minor or seemingly harmless pranks, but building up to what they call Zero Day, hence the name of the movie, which is the day that they'll get revenge on their school, which they in the very first scene they talk about how their school is the enemy, and they're standing some distance from it, and they're being really goofy, but they're also being serious, and that's part of what I think gives Zero Day its the power that it has, is that we really grow to like these two guys, or at least I did. If you don't like them, then you at least are allowed to see them as ordinary teenage boys, just goofing around and teasing one another, and at times getting on each other's nerves, but there's there's never any break between the two of them. They obviously represent different sorts of characters. One of them is much more like the Eric Harris type of personality. The other is much more like the Dylan Klebold personality. All of this is just a review of Zero Day, which I have talked about elsewhere in another video. But today I want to talk a little bit about the third in this trilogy of school shooter movies. And both of the early two movies came out in 2003. The next movie, called The Dirties, came out much later, 2013, so a whole decade later. Now, this movie is also very good. In a way, it's a bit more ambitious than certainly more ambitious than Zero Day. And as far as Elephant goes, it's been a while since I've seen it. I might have to rewatch it to remind myself about uh, the the composition of the movie or the themes of the movie, or more or less what the movie, the feeling that the movie leaves you with, as compared to the two other movies. But compared to Zero Day, The Dirties is a rather more ambitious film in that it's seems to want to say something not just about high school and bullying and friendship and all the other sort of things that are covered in Zero Day, but it also seems to want to be a commentary on film and how obsession with film, or with fiction generally speaking, can feed into a sense, an alienation. If you're already prone to being alienated from the world around you, which is to say, if you're like these two guys, and you're bullied and made fun of, and you're like on the low end of the totem pole at your school, and life just kind of sucks. And a lot of us know that feeling, I dare say. Maybe not exactly, maybe not as bad as they have it in the movie, or maybe some people have it worse, had it worse, and can remember and connect to those memories. But when you're already in this state that's potentially going to push you over the edge into feeling alienated from just about everybody, because parents don't understand. They're not really in the movie. The parents aren't really a factor in these kids' lives, and one gets the impression that even if they were concerned parents, or parents who were who wanted to keep up with what their kids were doing and monitor their kids and psychological state, and see if anything is up with them, see if they're going wrong in some way or another, and pay attention to that sort of thing. Even when there are parents who are very conscientious and who really love their kids and are very attentive. Part of being a teenager means pulling away from your parents and establishing your own identity. And I've seen it. I've seen it from both sides. I remember being a teenager, and I had parents who loved me, and I don't think they totally understood a lot of the things that I was into and so forth. But in any case, I still wanted to establish my own identity, and part of that meant I had to give them a sort of stiff arm, like in football, where a runner where someone with the ball is running away from a tackler, and if you've ever seen this, it's really cool. He sticks out his arm and pushes the guy in the head, and it's actually legal to do this in football, in American football, I mean. So you kind of have to give your folks the stiff arm, and that's just part of what naturally happens in your teenage years. So even if the parents even if the parents in the movie were portrayed as being more present and more attentive than the parents of these two kids who we don't really see very much of at all, there's still the whole issue of that you can hide a lot, you can keep a lot secret from your parents, and that's part of you wanting to establish your own world that's separate from them, and it's not because you hate them, or that you're against them, but you just want to become an adult, and you want to have your own sense of self that's separate from, who you were when you were a little kid, and when you were more, in your mom and dad's dominion, as it were. So, in any case, in the Dirties, we see for one of the two kids, and this time I'm actually remembering their names. Their names are Matt and Owen, and Matt is Matt Johnson, who's also the director, who's directed a few other things, who seems to be an indie film director. Is not that well known, but he's established a bit of an impressive resume. He's directed a few other movies. This was his first movie that he made, and it was released in 2013, when he was I think 27. So it's kind of amazing he plays an 18-year-old and actually gets away with it. So, he doesn't seem like he's a 27-year-old playing an 18-year-old. But for his character, he's obsessed with movies, and he and his friend Owen are wanting to make this movie. And the movie is sort of like if you've ever watched Eric and Dylan make their Columbine films, where they have where they're going to I remember the titles, Hitman for Hire. I think you can actually watch this on you can probably find it on YouTube. And these were just student films that they made. They were really kind of silly, and most people wouldn't pay them any mind. It's just sort of teenage boys being teenage boys, except that for Eric and Dylan, they were actually planning this school massacre for months on end, for over a year, and they managed to keep the secret from everybody else. And so for this movie, these kids are really, these two guys, especially Matt. Matt and Owen both are into making this movie, but Matt is especially into film. He's got posters up in his he has this place in the basement of his house where they hang out together, and he's got all these film posters and stuff that show that he's a big fan of movies, and he sort of wants to become this character, these kinds of characters that he's portraying. And at first it's very goofy and very tongue-in-cheek and sort of campy, and they're just having fun with it, and it's and you laugh watching their goofy little films, even though they're well made, they're very creative, they're much more attentive to detail than Eric and Dylan were in their student films. These films that they make for which they're making for their school class are quite intricately made, and Matt's really the heart and soul of all of this. Owen's also enjoying. He's sort of along for the ride, more or less, but Matt is really, really, really into it. But by the end of the movie, and this is a difference, the biggest difference, I think. Well, there's a couple of big differences between the Dirties and Zero Day. One is that with the Dirties, we see them getting bullied. There are several scenes where they're pushed around, and some guy or other, makes fun of them or instigates something with them, and we see the way that bullies behave and how they sometimes come across, how they can manipulate situations to make it seem like the person getting bullied was actually the one who was in the wrong. Like Owen gets completely humiliated in this lunchroom scene where he it's not clear what happens, but he's scooting his chair out, and the bully who's walking by gets his tray knocked over, and the bully acts like the kid, like Owen has done something really bad, and he makes a big scene out of it, and he makes him stand up and apologize, and Owen actually does it, and it's such a humiliating scene to watch, and it's so infuriating because you can see how this bully is kind of using these psychological tactics. Some bullies are actually very smart. It's kind of a cliche to render the bully as just a really strong but really dumb. A lot of bullies uh, really use their minds to torment their victims in very innovative and creative ways. Uh, and that just attests even more to um, uh, how despicable they are, because there's something about them that's charming to others, and so they get away with it, or they can even turn things around and make it seem like the person, like in this incident in the lunchroom, they can make it seem like the they like the bully can make it seem like he was the one really being victimized, and then he makes a big scene about it and humiliates his victim in public. Although in that scene, I wanted Owen to stand up to him. I wanted Owen to refuse to apologize, and he doesn't do that. But so the movie shows how these bullies operate, and that's one difference from Zero Day. And the other difference is, in Zero Day, there's never really a rift between the two boys. There are times where they argue a little bit. There are times where uh, they're not on the same page, but throughout the movie they're pretty much a unified force, even though they're two very different personalities. But in the Dirties, part of the tragedy of it is that these two guys grow apart. And a part of why that happens is because Owen starts talking to this girl that he likes, named Chrissy, and it seems like it's possible that she likes him back because she's being nice to him, and she's talking to him and asking him questions, and uh, and it might be that she just knows that he's smart, so she just wants to use him in that regard, or it might be that she actually likes him. It's sort of left unclear, but in any case, Owen starts to talk more to this girl Chrissy, and Matt feels left out in the cold, and that prompts Matt to start behaving even more crazily and more spastically. He's by far the more spastic of the two. There's a slow motion scene of them walking down the hall, and Owen's just kind of strolling, but Matt's doing all these kicks and things, and so he's the kind of kid who's actually very funny and very entertaining. If you ever if you saw this kid, if you watch the movie, you'll recognize these characters. They're very familiar, and that's part of what makes this movie so powerful. But Matt, he could have been the guy. He could have been somebody who turned things. He's very talented. He He's got a lot of energy. He's got a great sense of humor. Um, he's somebody who you would like to see be able to somehow turn things around, but the problem is he's just gotten really tired of this humiliation of going to school and getting bullied all the time, and he's starting to fight back. We see a couple scenes where he's taking the bullies on, um, but that's not enough. And he's wanting to make this movie sequel. Like they'd made this movie before, they called it the Dirties. That's also the name that they have for their bullies. The bullies are the Dirties. And he wants to make a sequel where they actually kill the bullies. But it's not clear whether he's serious about it or not, or Owen sort of is in denial about his friend. Whether he sort of tells himself that he's just really getting into the part, or really getting into the the movie that he's making now, because he goes so far as to ask for, go to some office, some official bureaucratic location downtown, where they have like the architecture, the layout for the school. He goes in and asks to have an actual map of the school, and they give it to him, and it's like without really asking any questions. So he does that. He starts making a list of all the kids who have picked on him and Owen, and he's like, his whole thing is, we'll do this, but we're just gonna shoot and kill the bad guys. And on the day that he actually does it himself, because he's in the end, he's the only one who's committed to this project. Owen has put some distance between himself and his former friend, Matt. So Matt's on his own, but he even wears this T-shirt saying, "We're just here for the bad guys." That's what his T-shirt says. And the very end, I don't want to talk. I won't give too much away. I've already given a lot away, but the end is very satisfying, but also very haunting. And it shows Matt's alienated state, how he's kind of not aware of what's real and what isn't. He's making this movie in his mind. It's just kind of a movie, even though part of him knows that he's using real guns, real ammunition, and so these bullets are really going to harm these people, these bullies. But the final scene, I won't describe it here, but because I want everybody to see this movie. It's very, very well worth seeing, and you can watch it for free on Amazon Prime. But the final scene just sort of underlines the tragedy of what has happened to Matt, and what has happened between Matt and Owen. So this movie, like Zero Day, is made in a documentary style, and I guess Elephant is also made in a sort of semi-documentary style. That's which is interesting, that all three of these most conspicuous movies about school shooters, about a school shooter scenario, choose to go the route of like found footage, or well, I guess that Elephant is the most cinematic and the least this way, but it still kind of has a documentarian style to it, in that there's not a lot, from what I'm remembering, there's a lot of just showing what's going on in the school, and just sort of following kids down the hallways as they're talking, and it seems to have this almost like not aimless. I don't know the word that I'm exactly looking for here, but it definitely, you know, isn't like isn't as plot driven, you know, as the typical movie would be. So I would say it would be safe to say for all three of these movies that they all do take on this documentary style. But the Dirties, I think, does it in a way that really draws attention to the issue of bullying. You know, which, even though, like, I know there's a lot of anti-bullying propaganda that's just sort of bogus, and it's really just pro-gay propaganda. It's like don't be mean to gay kids. Whereas bullying is much more, you know, it's like you don't have to be gay to be bullied, and you can be gay and be a bully. So you know, bullying is like, if you take the issue of bullying out, if you take the notion of bullying and remove this propagandistic kind of weaponized way that it's been hijacked, and just seeing bullying for what it is, which just doesn't have anything to do with the sexual orientation of anybody or the race of anybody, or it doesn't, you know, it's not, there's no necessary relation at all between those things. It's just the way that people who are more popular, you know, tend to behave towards people who are less popular. So it's ultimately, if you will, you know, a sort of pecking order related situation more than anything else. It's sort of like concerning the natural hierarchies that develop between people, and the way in which you know, people who believe themselves to be above others, you know, think that it's appropriate to behave towards those others. Anyway, I got a little far afield with that tangent. Anyway, that's about it. That's all I'll say about the Dirties right now. But I'm really interested in considering all three of these movies together, you know, as far as, you know, the three primary school shooter movies. And by the way, just in case you were wondering, I'm the author of The Columbine Pilgrim, which also takes up these issues in its own way. So if this subject interests you, and you haven't read The Columbine Pilgrim yet, I encourage you to give it a read. I don't usually throw in little plugs for myself like that, but here it seems appropriate to do so. Thanks for watching.